When's the last time you finished reading the Quran and actually felt something? Not just got through the pages, actually felt something, like the words were speaking to your specific situation about something real you were carrying that week. If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. And it's not because your faith is weak. It's because nobody ever taught you how to actually read it. Most of us learned to recite the Quran as children. We learned the letters, the tajweed rules, how to produce the sounds correctly, and that is genuinely valuable. The recitation of the Quran carries its own reward. But somewhere along the way, recitation became the whole thing. We finished the khatam, got the congratulations, and quietly moved on, assuming we had done what we were supposed to do. The words went in through the eyes and the mouth, but they never quite reached whatever was underneath. Allah has a word for what's missing. It's called Tadabbur, which means deep reflection on the Quran. And the thing that stopped me when I actually looked into it is that Allah doesn't just recommend it. He commands it. The Quran asks in Surah Muhammad, verse 24, "Do they not reflect upon the Quran?" It's a question, but it already knows the answer, and there's disappointment in it. So today, I want to walk you through what Tadabbur actually is, why most of us never learned it, and a practical 4-step method you can use starting tonight. No Arabic degree required. Before we go further, if this is the kind of content that helps you, hit subscribe. Now let's get into it. Here's something that changes how you see this book. The Quran was not revealed all at once. It came down over 23 years in response to real situations. Battles, grief, betrayal, doubt, specific questions that specific people were asking at specific moments. The companions who received it were not sitting in a classroom reading a finished text. They were living inside the revelation. When a verse came down about patience, someone nearby was actively struggling with it. When a verse came down about forgiveness, someone nearby was deciding in real time whether to grant it. That connection between the verse and the living moment is what Tadabbur is trying to restore for you. The Arabic root of the word means to reflect on the consequences of something, to think about where a thing leads. When you do Tadabbur with the Quran, you are not asking what this verse means grammatically. You are asking, where does this verse take me? What does it reveal about my situation right now? What does it ask of me today? Those are completely different questions, and they produce a completely different reading experience. I remember the first time I read Surah Al-Hadid, verse 16, with that kind of attention. Has the time not come for those who have believed that their hearts should become humbly submissive at the remembrance of Allah? I had read that verse before, probably many times, but I had never read it while being honest about the actual condition of my heart in that moment. When I did, it landed somewhere it had never landed before. Not like a lecture, more like being asked a real question by someone who already knew the answer and was giving you space to admit it yourself. That's what a verse can do when you actually stop inside it. So why don't we do this naturally? It's worth spending a minute here because the reasons are real and understanding them helps you get past them. The big one is that we were taught to value completion. Finishing a surah, finishing a juz, finishing the full khatam. Speed and quantity became the measure of a good Quran session, and that got passed down. Tadabbur runs completely counter to that training because it is slow, sometimes sitting on a single verse for 10 minutes, not because you're confused, but because there's something in it that hasn't resolved yet. Most of us were never rewarded for slowness when it came to the Quran, so it genuinely doesn't feel like the right approach, even when it is. Translation anxiety is the second thing. A lot of people feel that reading the Quran in translation is somehow less valid than reading in Arabic, so they read in Arabic without understanding, or they avoid reading altogether because neither option feels right. What I'd say to that is, Allah sent this book to be understood. Reading a careful translation with reflection is more valuable, spiritually, than moving through sounds you cannot comprehend. The Arabic matters and it's worth learning over time, but you don't have to wait for fluency to start actually reading. The third reason is simply that we never saw it modeled. Our parents recited, our teachers recited. The culture around the Quran in a lot of our households was about sound and completion, and that's not a criticism of anyone, it's just what was passed down. The reflection half got dropped somewhere, and nobody was explaining what we were missing. Here's the actual method. 4 steps, and it scales to whatever time you have, whether that's 1 verse or 1 page. Step 1 is to read slowly and stop when something catches your attention. Not when you're confused, but when something pulls at you, a word, an image, a command you realize you've been half following. Don't analyze it yet, just notice it and stay there for a moment. Step 2 is to ask the verse a direct question. This sounds almost too simple, but it takes some getting used to. The question is, what is this actually saying to me right now? Not what did it mean for people in 7th century Arabia, though that context matters and we'll get to it. But first, before everything else, what does this verse reveal about your situation today? The scholars speak about the Quran having a quality of speaking to every time and every person. Let it do that. Step 3 is to look at the context. This is where a tafsir, which is a Quranic commentary, becomes useful. You don't need an advanced one to start. Even a basic explanation of when the verse was revealed and what was happening at that moment will change what you receive from it. A verse about patience revealed right after the Prophet lost people he loved is a different experience than the same subject revealed during a period of stability. Context is not separate from meaning, it is part of it. Step 4 is a personal response, and almost nobody does this part. After you've read, after you've sat with the verse, after you've looked at context, you ask, what does this ask of me specifically? Not Muslims in general. You, today. It might be something to change in your behavior, a dua to make, a relationship to look at honestly, or just a quiet acknowledgement before Allah that you heard something real and you're not going to pretend you didn't. That's Tadabbur. That's the whole method. There's a hadith recorded in Musnad Ahmad that I keep coming back to. The companions noticed that the Prophet, peace be upon him, would sometimes spend an entire night prayer on a single verse, repeating it until Fajr. Not because he didn't know the rest of the Quran, he knew it better than any of them. He would stay in a verse because he was inside it, and he wasn't finished yet. And there was more in it than one pass-through could reach. That's not a standard most of us will hit. But it tells you something about what the Quran is actually meant to be for us, not a book we finish, a place we keep returning to. If you started reading the Quran tomorrow with just these 4 steps, using a surah you already know, something like Mulk or Waqiah or Yasin, you might find yourself feeling something you forgot was possible. Maybe not immediately, but at some point you'll stop on a verse and the words will reach somewhere, and you'll think, that's what this book is actually for. Leave a comment with the surah you're going to try this with first. I genuinely want to know. If you want to go deeper on building a daily Quran habit that actually sticks, watch this video next.